Welcome back, everyone, to another segment of Rabbi Jeff's Pirkei Avos, where we attempt to understand the meaning behind the instructions of our sages and how it's relevant to our lives today. We do this, of course, using the thoughts of our teachers before us and try to make them applicable to our times. Feel free, please, to contact me with any comments or questions at rjfromlj@aol.com. Is chapter 1, Mishna Yud Beis, Mishna 12. We're embarking on an incredible set of Mishnayos now, the Mishnayos of Hillel and Shamai. And before I begin the discussion of the particular halachos, the particular Mishnayos of Hillel and Shamai, so there needs to be a larger discussion of Hillel and Shamai. I'm just gonna pay homage to the Mishnah, to the Mishnah 12. I didn't put it up today on the side because we're not really dealing with the Mishnah today. But Hillel v'Shamai kiblu mehem, Hillel v'Shamai received from the generations before them. Hillel says, having me talmid of shel Aaron, that we have to be from the students of Aaron. Oev shalom v'rodev shalom, love peace and pursue peace. Oev is abrius and mekarven the Torah, and we have to love people and mekarven the Torah and bring them closer to Torah. There happen to be many textual problems with this statement of Hillel's, of what it means to be an Oev Shalom versus a Rodev Shalom. What is the difference between an Oev Shalom and a Rodev Shalom and an Oev Esabrios? And where does mekarven the Torah come in? That you have to, it's about outreach. Like where does that fit into the whole picture? But before we discuss that, the truth is, we have to discuss the approaches of Hillel and Shamai, and what are the approaches of Hillel and Shamai to understand where Hillel and Shamai come from in their approach to midos, their approach to character traits and character development that are presented here in the next couple of Mishnayos. To understand that, we have to take a look that we know that there is many places where there are machlokas and there are differences between Hillel and Shamai, and then subsequently in their schools, their batei midrashos, the Beis Shamai and Beis Hillel, the schools of Shamai and the schools of Hillel. And the truth is that there are many machlokas. But I want to focus just on a few of them in order to be able to give perhaps an understanding of b'mai komifli, of what they're really arguing about. We know that whenever you see a machlokas in the Gemara, you see a machlokas between Tanoim or Amoraim, you have to ask yourself the question of b'mai komifli. And this is a good psychological practice also. When you're dealing with another person and you're at odds, it's always a good question to ask b'mai komifli. What are we actually arguing about? What's bothering you, or what's your basis for your position, and what's the basis for my position? This works also when it comes to relationships. It works when it comes to business things. It works when it comes to parents and children, where you say to a child to do something and a child says no. What's the child's problem? What's the real machlokes between the parent and the child? So we have to ask the same question when it comes to Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. What's the real machlokes? What are the things they're really arguing with? We know, for example, and I just hit this in another shiur that I'm giving, learning brachos with a group of people from La Jolla, that we just hit the Mishnah that deals with many of the machlokes that surround the Seudah and other things between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. We know that Beis Shammai says that on Saturday night when you hold up the candle, so then you make the bracha shebara me'or ha'esh, that he created the light of the fire. Beis Hillel says borei me'orei ha'esh, and we know, of course, who we paskin like, obviously, but nevertheless, Beis Hillel is saying the bracha is borei me'orei ha'esh. No, b'mai komifli, what are they arguing about? Are they arguing about merely how you make a bracha, what the proper words of the bracha are? There's another famous machlokas. When it comes to Chanukah, we're told that Beis Shammai holds that you light 8 candles the first night, 8 lights the first night, and then the second night 7, and then you go down, poches v'holech, you go down to 1. Beis Hillel says you start off with 1, and then each night you add 1 on, and you come to 8. Again, b'mai komifli, what are they arguing about? There's another famous machlokas. Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai argue about whether you can set up a malacha an action that is going to be taking place over Shabbos, but it began on Friday. It's many cases in the Mishnayos and Maseches Shabbos and Tractate Shabbos deal with this. One of them is Ein Shorin Diovis Mamonim V'Kashinim. You can't soak inks and dyes and things that need time to soak. You can't soak them on Friday, unless there is enough time for them to be finished on Friday. And then if it continues to soak on Shabbos, it doesn't matter. But the actual melacha, the actual soaking, the actual dyeing, that took place before Shabbos. Whereas Beis Hillel says, no, it's fine. You can set it up on Friday right before Shabbos and let it continue on Shabbos. What are they arguing about? We know that there is a very famous attitude difference between Hillel and Shamai. We know that the Gemara says, Tanya Omro Lov al Shamai Azakin, they said about Shamai the elder, that Kol Yom Avayochel L'Chavod Shabbos, every day he ate L'Chavod Shabbos, honoring Shabbos. And the Gemara says over that he would find a beautiful animal and he would say, Zula Shabbos, this is for Shabbos. And then the next day he would find a better animal and he would say, Zula Shabbos. And then he would find something better and he would say, no, Zula Shabbos. And he would eat the first one and then save the second one for Shabbos, and then eat the second one, save the third one for Shabbos. And this is the way he lived through the week until he got to Shabbos. Says the Gemara, but Hillel wasn't that way. Hillel had a mida acheres. He had a different characteristic. Hoysalo, he says, Shekol Maso L'Shem Shamayim. Everything he did was L'Shem Shamayim. What? And Shammai wasn't L'Shem Shamayim? It's like the wording of the Gemara is very difficult. But he said everything that Hillel did was L'Shem Shamayim. Shenemar, he said, Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. That he said, blessed is God Yom Yom, every single day. What's the difference in attitude between Hillel and Shammai that's being presented in the way they prepared for Shabbos? Hillel would eat something, find something on Sunday and say, Gishmak, and he would eat it on Sunday. He would find something on Monday and he would say, Gishmak, and he would eat it on Monday. But Shammai found it on Sunday and he would say, this is for Shabbos, and Monday, this is for Shabbos. What was the attitude difference between them? But there's another machlokas that talks about tumah, talks about impurity by honeycombs. And the honeycombs, when they're turned into liquid, so then they are mekabel tumah, they can receive tumah. So the Mishna asks, at what point are they considered that they are tameh, that they have the potential of becoming tameh, of becoming impure? Beis Shammai says, from the moment that they are mishiyacharcher, which means that they're heated up or they're smoked, whereas Beis Hillel says, when you crush them and you turn them into liquid, says at that point they are considered liquid and could become tameh. Again, what's the machlekes? Now you're thinking to yourself, we don't have the laws of Tum and Tar today. What do I really care? We don't really care in the sense that this is not halachic. And the reason that we're going through these machlokes has nothing to do with halacha, but to understand a certain life approach that manifests itself in all of these machlokes in between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. We know that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argue about when is Rosh Hashanah Lilanos? When is the Rosh Hashanah for trees? Beis Shammai says that the Rosh Hashanah for trees is Shvat, and it's Rosh Chodesh Shvat, whereas Beis Hillel says it's Tu B'Shvat. And we know, of course, we pass like Beis Hillel that it's Tu B'Shvat. But what are they arguing about? Why does one say Rosh Chodesh Shvat and one say Tu B'Shvat? We also know that the famous stories between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, the convert comes to Beis Hillel and comes to Beis Shammai, says to him, I want you to convert me while I'm standing on one foot. Beis Shammai throws him out of the office. He comes to Beis Hillel, and Beis Hillel says to him, what is hateful to you, don't do to your friend. The rest is commentary. Zeal Gemara, go learn it. The convert comes to Shamai and says to Shamai, I want you to convert me, but I want you to make me into a Kohen Gadol, into a high priest. Shamai says, get out of here. He goes to Hillel, and Hillel says to him, no problem. He converts him, and then he gives him a chumash, and he says, this is the high priest manual. Learn this manual, and you'll know exactly what a high priest has to do. So the convert starts learning through the manual, and it says in the manual, Zara Karev Yumas, that a non-Kohen that sacrifices an animal shall die. He looks at it and he says, if a Jewish non-Kohen is going to die if he does the service, then a Goyish non-Kohen is in a lot of trouble. So he says, obviously I can't be a Kohen Gadol. And he comes back to Hillel, and then they work out the rest of the story. Then the Gemara tells of a story of a convert that comes to Shamai and says to him, I only want you to convert me and teach me Torah Shebechsav, the written Torah. I rejected the oral Torah. Shamai throws him out of the office. Comes to Hillel, and Hillel says to him, no problem. Hillel says, Aleph Beis Gimel Daled. And the guy says, Aleph Beis Gimel Daled. He comes back the next day and he says to him, Gimel Beis Aleph Daled. And the guy says to him, wait a second. Yesterday you taught me that was an Aleph, that was a Beis, that was a Gimel, that was a Daled. So Hillel says to him, correct. In the same way you believed me yesterday, this is an Aleph, this is a Beis, a Gimel, a Daled. You have to understand that's what an oral Torah is. That an oral Torah is what gives meaning to the written Torah. Great, and the guy became a from a Yid. The three of them, those guys, met each other in a hotel, and they were talking with each other, and they said that if it weren't for Hillel, then our souls never would have developed, and we never would have become, if it wasn't for Hillel, if we would have followed Shamai, then we would have been lost. What was the machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel? Why was Beis Hillel so willing to accept them as converts, and Beis Shammai was not willing to accept them as converts? There's another famous story in that same Gemara in Shabbos, which says that there was a fellow that came to anger Hillel. And he came to him at the beginning, and on Erev Shabbos, right before Shabbos, Hillel was taking a shower. He stands under Hillel's window and he says, where is Hillel? Where is Hillel? So Hillel gets dressed, comes out of the shower, and he quickly throws on his robe. He comes downstairs and he says, yes. And the guy says, I have an important question. So Hillel says to him, sure, ask away. Guy asks some ridiculous question. Hillel gives him an answer. Fine. End of story. Then a few minutes later, the guy comes back. Mikan Hillel, where's Hillel? Hillel's back in the shower. So he gets out of the shower, puts his bathrobe back on, comes back down, says to the guy, can I help you? The guy says, yes, I have a very important question. Hillel says to him, great, no problem, please ask away. And he asks him 4 times, and he asks him the most ridiculous questions. And Hillel gives him an answer every single time. At the end, the guy says, I hate you. Like, why do you hate me? He says, because you made me lose a lot of money. Because I had a bet that I could get you angry, and I lost the money on the bet. And he said to him, it would have been kedai, that it's better that you don't get Hillel angry. In other words, it was worthwhile for you to lose all of that money. Okay, what is that? What is that telling us about Hillel? Look, can you only imagine? Like, put yourself in that. You're all very nice people. Put yourself in that position. Friday afternoon, a nudnik calls you right before Shabbos and starts to chepper you with stupidity. In the nicest way, you're going to say to them, I don't think that now is the proper time to deal with this. Why don't you call me after Shabbos and we'll deal with it? Nah, not Hillel. Hillel sat there and he talked to the guy and he answered every single one of his questions. What does that say about Hillel? Okay, now many people explain the differences between Hillel and Shamai, and I'm sure that many of you have heard this, that the difference between Hillel and Shamai is that Hillel was more machmir, Shamai was more machmir, was more strict, Hillel was more lenient. And whilst that's true, if you go through many of the discussions between Hillel and Shamai, Hillel takes a more lenient position, Shamai takes a more strict position, and therefore that was the differences between them. And explains also the stories of why Shamai threw them out of the office. Hillel was able to deal with the converts because Shamai was much stricter, Hillel was much softer. But it's not down to the center core. It's true, but it's more about a manifestation of their attitudes rather than their attitude itself. Another explanation that people give, in a bit of a deeper way, is that they say that that Shamai was all about gevura. His midah was the midah of gevura, the midah of power, black and white. Whereas Hillel was more about chesed, was more about kindness. And that was the reason why Shammai rejected all of these potential converts. Hillel was able to accept them. Hillel was kinder than Shammai was. And if you look in the Mishnayos, you see that Hillel takes a softer position in the next couple of Mishnayos and Pirkei Avos than Shammai does, you would think. Now I'm going to ask you, have you mekabelas kol adam b'sever panim yafos? You should greet every person with a smile. Who said that? Shammai. That puts pay to the theory that Hillel was all about chesed, and Shammai was all about gevura, greeting people with a smile is about chesed, and therefore that's not a great way to explain the difference between Hillel and Shamai. Plus, we say that in the future, in Olam Hazeh, this world, we follow the laws like Hillel, but in the future, the law is going to be like Shamai. What does all of this mean? So I want to tell you an amazing thing. Rav Zevin, and before him, Rav Meir Shapiro of Daf Yomi fame, explained the machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel in an incredible way. Rav Zevin asked the following question. He said that there is a machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel about whether Shemayim was created before Oretz, whether the heavens were created before the earth, or whether the earth was created before the heavens. Beis Shammai held the Shemayim was created before the heavens, before the earth. But Beis Hillel said that the earth was created before the heavens. Says Rav Zevin, b'mai komifli, what are they arguing about? And in the most incredible, insightful way, he says that the machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel is all about, do you look at potential or do you look at actual? Shammai says you have to look at the future, you have to look at the potential of a situation, you have to consider all of its ramifications. Beis Hillel says, look at what's in front of you. What's in front of you is much more critical than the considerations of what might be in the future. Shemayim and Oretz. Shemayim is all about the machshavos, the thoughts of a person, the potentials of their actions. Oretz is all about the land, the earth, the actions, the here and now. Beis Shammai says Shemayim has to come before Oretz. We have to worry about your potentials, which are going to bring out the actions. Beis Hillel says first is Oretz, then Shemayim. First deal with now, and then you'll purify the potentials. You'll purify that which is going to cause other things to happen. But first, deal with Oretz. And if you take this idea, you can bring it through every single machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. That's why Beis Hillel was lenient and Beis Shammai was machmer. Beis Shammai was strict because Beis Shammai made many gezeros, many decrees, because Beis Shammai said, don't just look at what's now, look at where it could go, look at what this could lead you to, look at where this could get you. And therefore we have to take a strict approach in halacha, lest you come to making a mistake. Hillel says, worry about now. Right now, are you going to make a mistake? Right now, are you doing something wrong? No, you don't have to worry about it. Right now, it's fine. That manifests itself in what appears to be a strict attitude in halacha or a lenient attitude in halacha, but it's not because of strict and lenient. It's because of, do you focus on the future, on the potentials, or do you focus on what is sitting in front of you now? That's the difference between Gevura and Chesed. Chesed looks at a person and sees where they are at this moment. Not where they're going, not where they were, but where are you right now and what can I do for you right now? Gevura looks at a person and says, what's your potential? Where are you going? What are you going to become? And that's why Shammai was Gevura, because Shammai was focused on potential. And that's why Hillel was Chesed, because Hillel was focused on now. Take a look at that machlokes about what we say on Saturday night, Borei Ma'oria Eish or Bara Ma'or Eish. Beis Shammai was focused on the original fire, which was the potential of all fires. When he makes a bracha on fire on Motzoi Shabbos, he's going back to Adam's fire, back to the original fire, to the fire that was created in the very beginning. And therefore it's Bara Me'or Ha'esh. Beis Hillel is looking at fires now. Right now, fire becomes permissible. Right now, in Motzoi Shabbos, I can use a fire again. Fire has many colors. Borei ma'orei ha'esh. Because Beis Hillel is looking at it the way it is now, Beis Shammai is looking at the potential. When it comes to Hanukkah, Beis Shammai says on the first night of Hanukkah, there was potential for it to last 8 nights. On the second night of Hanukkah, there was a potential for a miracle to be 7 nights. On the third night of Hanukkah, there was a potential for 6 nights. Beis Hillel says on the first night of Hanukkah, you had a miracle. That oil would light, that oil would burn. It's a miracle. On the second night, you had a miracle that which could have lasted 1 night lasted a second night. Beis Shammai was focused on potential. Beis Hillel was focused on actual. Erev Shabbos, when we're setting up a malacha, when we're setting up work to do over Shabbos, Beis Hillel says on Shabbos are you doing the work? Did you put the stuff in the thing to soak on Shabbos? No. Therefore, you did no malacha. Beis Shammai says on Erev Shabbos, when you put it in, the potential was that it was going to soak, that it was going to do a malacha. And therefore, on Shabbos, it's as if you're actually doing the malacha. Because Beis Shammai was focused on potential. Beis Hillel was focused on now. When it comes to preparing for Shabbos, Beis Shammai saw a cow on Monday. He looked at it and he said, ooh, this could be for Shabbos. The potential to be Mechabed Shabbos. I'm looking at what this could be. Beis Hillel looks at it and says, right now on Monday, this is a geschmacka piece of meat. For now, because Beis Shammai looked at now, at what was present in front of him. Beis Hillel looked at what was present in front of him. Beis Shammai looked at potential. Honeycombs. When do they become tamei? Beis Shammai says, as soon as you begin to smoke them, to fire them, that's the beginning of the process of them turning into liquid. Beis Hillel says, when you crush them and you turn them into liquid. Beis Hillel looks at now, Beis Shammai looks at the future. Tu B'Shvat, Rosh Hashanah Li'Ilanos. Beis Shammai says, the first of Shvat. Because on Rosh Chodesh Shvat is when the majority of the rain has fallen for that season. Once the majority of the rain has fallen, the potential for trees to be able to grow fruit begins. And therefore, the potential is when you celebrate Rosh Hashanah Li'Ilanos. Beis Hillel says, no. Beis Hillel says, when they actually begin to blossom, when they actually begin to grow, that's when it's Rosh Hashanah Li'Ilanos. And that's why he says Tu B'Shvat. Not because he was a mekel, not because he was a machmer, but because their Weltanschauung, the way they saw the world. Beis Shammai saw the world in potential terms. Beis Hillel saw it in actual terms. That explains the stories of the converts. Beis Shammai looks at it and says, if I convert a guy who thinks that the whole Torah could be reduced to one mitzvah, I'm in for trouble. This is not going in a good direction. Beis Hillel looks at it and says, who cares where it's going? I got a guy who's standing in front of me who says, I want to convert. I want to come under Tachas Kanfei HaShechina. Oh, my head's a little screwed up. Who cares? I want to be closer to God. Hillel converts the guy, and then later is going to worry about how to straighten the guy out. Each of the cases, the difference between them is, are you focused now or are you focused on the future? There isn't a right and a wrong. It's two different approaches. Look at where Hillel's approach goes. Friday afternoon, a guy comes to him and says ridiculous questions. Multiple times, the guy comes and pulls him out of a shower to ask him a ridiculous question. By the third time, you'd imagine Hillel would have said, oh, this Shmendrik again? But it didn't bother him, because each time Hillel was focused on now. What's going on right now? A Yid has a question. A Yid is bothered by something, I'm going to help him. Didn't look at the potential, didn't look at where it was going. What is going on now? And that created a type of human being. That created a human being that could say, Havi mitalmidav shel Aaron, ohev shalom, v'rodev shalom, Oev es abrios umekarvan l'Torah. Love people for what they are, not for what their potential is, not for what they might do to you, not for what they might become, but love them for who they are. Love your Torah for what it is so that it will be inspiring to others, but not for potential where it goes, but for now. And that explains why our rabbis tell us that in the future, the halacha is going to be like Beis Shamai. Because in the future, there will be no difference between potential and actual. In Olam Hazeh, where there's a difference between actual and potential, we paskin, the Baskol told us that it's better to focus on the actual. There are times where you need to focus on the potential, and those times, Shamai, Hillel will agree. Nevertheless, the main approach has to be focus now. Be in the moment. Look at what you have in front of you. But in the future, what you have in front of you and the potential for it to become something will be the same. And that's why we say the halacha is going to be like Beis Shammai, because in essence, there will be no machlokes Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai in the future. I found that to be such an incredibly sharp insight of Rav Zevin's. It excited me to find out that this was something that was said even before him, that's said by Rabbi Meir Shapiro. And I think that it's an incredible way to look at life in general, to see that there are two ways to approach things, to look at the now and to look at the potential. There isn't a right and a wrong. Sometimes you need to use one approach, sometimes you need to use the other, but that there are two different focuses. Once we have this as a basis, now to go into the Mishnayos and start to rip apart the Mishnayos and understand what it means to be Oev Shalom v'Rodev Shalom. What's the difference between Ava and Redifa, loving and running after? Starting to deal with all of the minutiae of the rules of Hillel and the rules of Shammai. Now we can understand them against this backdrop of potential versus actual. Okay. And that concludes today's segment of Pirkei Avos, or how to enjoy every moment of life. Okay.
Rabbi Jeff.
Yes.
I turned off my video because you knocked me off my chair and you knocked my socks off too. And I didn't want to show anybody any of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
And just one small question though.
Sure.
A while back, the configuration was two guys. One was the Nasi, one was the Av Beit Din.
Right.
Are we still in that configuration?
Yes, we're still in that configuration. This is the last of the Zugos, and one was
Okay.
the Nasi and one was the Av Bezdin. And we can use the same words. One was Ava, one was Yira. But now we understand that the Av and Yira is really a much deeper thing. That the Av and Yira certainly in Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai terms, is potential versus actual.
Perfect. Thanks.
Which one was which? May I ask?
Beis Shammai was Yira and Beis Hillel was Ava. Beis Shammai was looking at potential, whereas Beis Hillel was looking at the here and now.
Thank you.
Okay, amazing. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.